Here is the only emergency fund strategy you should ever be using, and I promise no other money experts are teaching you this. And if any of this is helpful, tune into my new podcast, Your Money Guide on the Side, by clicking the link in my bio. Number 1, standard advice tells you to keep 3 to 6 months in cash or in a high-yield savings account, earning, let's say, 4%. Number 2, the problem? You're not earning 4%. You're earning 3% because that money is taxed. Number 3, the solution? Put that money in a Roth IRA and place it in a risk-free money market fund that not only earns the same 4% as your high-yield savings account, but keeps that 4% and allows it to compound over time. Number 4, if you have an emergency, don't worry, as you can still access those contributions, penalty and tax-free, at any time. Number 5, and here's why this is the smartest emergency fund strategy you could ever use, if you don't have an emergency, which we usually don't, you still have a risk-free investment in a Roth, only now it's earning 33% more than what you were making in your taxable emergency fund. Number 6, oh yeah, there's an emergency. It's that you're losing 25% of your emergency fund to taxes each year. Can I say except you're welcome?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Profit Pulse, where we make money simple and smart. Today, we're talking about one of the most important steps in financial security, building your emergency fund. Because when life happens, whether it's a job loss, a medical bill, or a flat tire, having that safety net can make all the difference. So if you're ready to stop stressing about unexpected expenses and start feeling confident with your money, let's dive right in.
I have a fully funded emergency savings of $20,000 and I'll still occasionally get my nails, hair, and brows done. I also don't drive any fancy car, cook most of my meals at home, and don't have any designer clothes. Being good with money is not about being cheap, it's about being intentional. And that's not to say I didn't make any sacrifices, but it was a lot easier to do once I got really clear on what was important to me. And that's how I practice value-based spending. What are your priorities?
This is how to build a solid emergency fund in 4 steps. Step number 1, save enough to cover your highest deductible. For a lot of us, this tends to be our health and auto deductibles. This could vary from $500 to $2,000, but use that as a target and go for it. Depending on what you can afford, this can take 2 to 12 months. Either is fine. It should go without saying, but automate your savings or so help me God. Step number 2, save enough to cover 1 month of your core expenses. Think housing, be it your rent or a mortgage payment. Think utilities, think groceries, transportation, etc. The things that keep you alive and housed. Knowing you can cover 1 full month without income gives you breathing room and keeps you from reaching for that credit card. Put it down. Step number 3, expand to 3 months of expenses. This is where your emergency fund actually starts to feel like a cushion. Job loss, medical leave, or car repairs don't catastrophize when you've got 3 months of living expenses sitting safely in an account that you don't touch unless it's real life or death. Step number 4, graduate to 6 months or more if your lifestyle or career calls for it. If you're self-employed, working in sales, or working in an industry with a lot of layoffs, you'll sleep better at night knowing that 6 months is tucked away. If your income is super stable and you're very employable, 3 months might be enough for you, and you can now increase the investment contributions that you've been making. And I say been because I know I taught you to invest while saving instead of doing one after the other. Don't piss me off. I hope this helps.
I have $28,000 in my emergency fund, which is about 6 months of expenses. It took me 5 years of consistently setting money aside every single month, including all of my bonuses, all of my tax refunds. So if you've been saving for years and years and you feel behind, just know that that is completely normal. It's supposed to take years and years to save. 3 to 6 months of expenses is a lot of money, especially if you're juggling multiple goals like saving for your emergency fund on top of investing for retirement, on top of paying off debt. Plus, in real life, actual emergencies do pop up and you have to use your emergency fund. So it might feel like you're saving the same money over and over and over again. But I just want to say that is exactly what your emergency fund is there for. You should be proud that you had that money saved up and set aside to cover you for that emergency. I know it can feel devastating to have to basically start all over, but the emergency fund did the thing the emergency fund was supposed to do. All that to say, the important thing is just really staying consistent and working towards your goals. And also just setting smaller milestones along the way to help you stay motivated and actually celebrate the progress that you're making.
One thing I refuse to do in my 20s is be financially irresponsible. That's exactly why I have a 6-figure emergency fund, and most people think I'm crazy for that, but it's really not that crazy. So let's break it down. An emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of expenses. Everyone has a set amount of expenses every month, and an emergency fund is there in case something goes wrong. You lose your job, you lose your source of income, or something terrible happens to you. But because you have 3 to 6 months of your fixed expenses already saved in an account, you can then continue to live your life as is for a couple months while you figure out a way to get back on your feet. And for me, I have cash, about $45,000 on me, because that is what my fixed expenses are for a single year, right? So my car payment and my insurance and some bills, that's about $775 $70 a month. So you times that by 12, that's $9,300. I give myself about $400 buffer for monthly expenses, for food and going out and just like whatever, my subscriptions. So that's another roughly $4,000. Then I have my rent, which is my biggest expense, $30,000 per year, because my rent is $2,500 a month roughly. And I also paid off my car like last week, so that doesn't matter anymore, but still. So that's $45,000 in cash that I have on me in a high yield savings account, just in case if anything goes wrong. I could literally afford to not work for a year. But on top of that, I have another 2 years of additional income, of emergency funds, 6 figures, about $132,000. However, that one isn't set aside in cash in a high yield savings account. Those are just in various assets that are highly liquid. So I could have that available to me in cash within a couple days. If you don't have any sort of savings or an emergency fund, start by saving $1,000 and act like you don't even have it. That is there only for rainy days. And if you already have that, you need to figure out how much money you spend every single month and then save about 3 to 6 months of that over some time. I promise you, your future you will thank you. It's a great peace of mind to have.
How much is a good amount for a fully funded emergency fund? Let's talk about it. This is something I go into depth about and help you figure out in the Budget Mastery Bootcamp, which you can sign up for in my bio or go grab any of the other resources. But let me give you a quick rundown of what a fully funded emergency fund looks like. So y'all have heard me say 1,000 times that for a starter emergency fund, before you even start paying off your debt or doing anything else, you need at least $1,000 up to $2,000 if it makes you more comfortable in a starter emergency fund, which is basically your safety net as you move on to your debt payoff, so that if anything unexpected happens, you don't go further into debt trying to take care of that unexpected expense. But after you've paid off all your debt and you've done all of that, then you want to focus back on your emergency fund and build it more up and get it fully funded. So what does that look like? You have a few different options, and it's totally up to you and your comfort level and what is going to make you comfortable with your savings. Option 1 is to have 3 to 6 months worth of your fixed expenses. What does that look like? Let me show you. You should by this point already have a budget in place. We're looking at a monthly overview budget right now, and you'll see the income, fixed expenses, and variable expenses. I just told you 3 to 6 months worth of fixed expenses. What are fixed expenses? They are your bills that have due dates. Anything that you pay on a monthly basis with a due date, like rent, water, any of your utilities, your phone, insurance, you see all these examples here, even debt payments. These are fixed expenses. Even though electric can vary from month to month, use a high average in your budget, and you are going to want to total all of that up and get your fixed expense total for the month. In this case, we're looking at $2,650. So in this example, like I said, $2,650. And then if you were to times that by 3, you would have $7,950. Or if you multiply it by 6, you'll have $15,900. If you are comfortable with just having your fixed expenses 3 to 6 months worth, then this would be the option for you. Anywhere in this range of numbers would be a fully funded emergency fund for you. Like I said, totally up to you and your comfort level. Option 2 is to have 3 to 6 months worth of your total monthly expenses, not just your fixed. So let's look at what that looks like. We're back in the monthly overview budget, and you'll see fixed expenses, and then we have variable expenses. The two most common are grocery and gas. These are things that you spend on a monthly basis that you put a limit on for yourself. So you could have fun money in here, you could have date nights in here. If you've watched my other videos, you know what variable expenses are. And so you'll list them out and you'll total them up here. You need to take this number and this number, add them together to get your total monthly expense amount, which in this case would be $3,350. So let's go back and figure out what this option looks like. So taking a total monthly expense number of $3,350, 3 months worth of that would be $10,050, 6 months worth would be $20,100. Anywhere in this range would be a good fully funded emergency fund if you wanted your total monthly expenses accounted for. Option 3 is having 3 to 6 months worth of your income as your safety net of your fully funded emergency fund. So let's look at that. In this example, we had a monthly income of $4,000. So we are going to take $4,000 and we are going to multiply that by 3 and 6. So 3 months worth of income would be $12,000, 6 months worth of income would be $24,000. Don't get freaked out by these high numbers, okay? This does not happen overnight. This is a goal for you, a long-term goal. So how do you pick between, how do you decide which one you want to save? That completely depends on your comfort level. So say you lost your job and you didn't know when you could get a new one. Which one would you be more comfortable having? 6 months, 3 to 6 of fixed expenses, 3 to 6 months worth of total expenses, or 3 to 6 months worth of your income? This one is obviously the highest amount, but this would allow you to go 3 to 6 months without a job and you will still be able to fully live your life. So take some time and choose which option you would be more comfortable with. Put it on your vision board, put it on your goal board, whatever you do for yourself, and know that in the future, this is going to happen for you. It takes time, it takes consistency, but you got this, friend.
You should always have an emergency fund. If you don't, that's an issue. An emergency fund is not the same as a savings account. It's different. Let's do an example. Take out your notebooks. Let's go. Say I get laid off today and my mortgage is $1,500 a month. This is a hypothetical example. If I give myself 3 months to find a job, actively looking, that means my mortgage will be $4,500 over 3 months. How am I paying for it? Am I dipping into my savings or do I have an emergency fund? Let's talk about gold and why it's important. You don't need to put $20 a month towards an emergency fund. I'm going to give you an example. That is why I went to the safe and pulled out some of my gold to wear for this video to show you guys. Let's go. You're going to see a screenshot of the bangles that my mom purchased for me for my wedding. These are 8 bangles and you'll see the price. Guess what? The price has almost gone up by $2,000. This is what that means. If I go back to that jeweler today and say I would like to return these, they will take them back and give me $2,000 additional dollars in cash on top of what I paid for, because gold always has amazing resale value. That's why you'll see women in certain parts of the world always investing in gold. So if you caught this video and you are in your 20s and up, this is the perfect time to start using your brain for your future. What I want you to do is start asking for gold for your Christmas presents, your birthday presents, all of that. Let me give you a little close-up. And this is how you're going to start. We're going to plan it all out, don't you worry. I want you to start with either a 22 karat or 24 karat gold chain for beginners. 24 karat gold is 99.9% pure gold. 22 karat gold is 91.6% gold. And 18, 14, 10 girl, don't even get it. Let me give you another quick comparison so your minds can be blown. This ring is 5 times the cost of the bangles, and guess what? If I go to sell this today, I'm not even getting half of it back. Let that sink in. So next time you want your Tiffany's, your Pandora, you're gonna step back and be like, nope, I remember my 22 and 24 karat gold lesson. Start getting smarter. And yes, the gold brick will cost you an arm and a leg, and guess what? It's gonna go up in value, and when a life event happens that you did not plan for, you will be good. Your body will not go into fight or flight immediately because you know you've done the prep work and you've planned it out.
Don't forget, do not forget your starter emergency fund, all right? I want you to save $1,000 ASAP into a savings account quickly. I mean quickly. Because check this out, I wrote this stat down. 40% of Americans have less than $300 in savings. And 50% of Americans have less than $600 in savings. And then let's go even a little bit higher, just a little bit. Nearly 52% of us don't even have $1,000 in our emergency fund. So this means that if an emergency came up for $300, 40% of us have to go borrow money from friends and family, are going to be forced to go back into debt, are going to be forced to go out there and get an emergency credit card. No, that's ridiculous. When you get your paycheck, start setting yourself up to win with money. How do you do that? Yo, go ahead, get prepared for emergencies. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something's going to happen. It's not a matter of if your tire is going to blow out, if you're going to get a nail in your tire, if you're going to get a cracked phone screen, if you're going to have to get home for a family emergency, someone's in the hospital, or if you're going to have to go to the doctor's office and pay that deductible. The if is not there. It's just a matter of when.
If you're saving for an emergency fund, here are 3 things that you need to know. The first is that it's going to take time. You're not going to save this overnight. It took me 5 years to save up for my 6-month emergency fund. And even then, I wouldn't have been able to do that without tax refunds, starting bonuses, and making extra money outside of my 9 to 5. If you're struggling and you think it's taking you forever to build your emergency fund, that is 100% completely normal and expected. Number 2 is keep your emergency fund in a high yield savings account that's different from the bank you have your checking account with. This was a game changer for me. I was always someone that would transfer money from my savings to my checking every single time I went shopping. Having that money separated from your day-to-day spending money is so important so you aren't so tempted to transfer that over every time. Typically, it takes 1 to 2 days to transfer money from a high yield savings account to your checking account. Number 3 is no amount of savings is too small. If you can only add $10 a month in your emergency fund, that's $10 more than nothing. It's gonna help you build the habit habit of saving. And over time, as your income grows, as you start tracking your spending and reducing expenses, you're gonna have a little bit more wiggle room and you're gonna be able to save more and more money. But starting the habit of saving money every single month to your emergency fund, that is a huge accomplishment in itself.
According to Bankrate.com, apparently 22% of US adults do not have any type of emergency savings at all. America, we got a problem. So let's talk a little bit about emergency funds, what they are, how to save for one, how much you should save for one, and the best vehicles for storing an emergency fund. Some recap, if you guys didn't watch the video where I laid out the 6 steps that I followed to save and invest over $100,000 and get myself out of 15K of credit card debt. Step 2 was building an emergency fund. And an emergency fund is a relatively accessible and liquid sum of money that you only touch during emergencies. Good examples of emergencies are things like loss of job or like an emergency medical procedure or an appliance going out on you and you having to replace it, things like that. There's a lot of information out there on how much you should save for an emergency fund. I've come across information like, I think one of Dave Ramsey's like baby steps is having an emergency fund of $1,000. And given the statistics that like 22% of Americans don't even have any money saved up, I do think that any money is better than anything. So I don't really have anything against the $1,000 amount. However, I don't really think that's enough. And my rule of thumb when it comes to like my emergency fund and oops, my light went out. But for me personally, when it comes to my emergency fund, I like to have 3 to 6 months of my living expenses saved up. Just in the case of like, if I get laid off or something, you know, with my job, I have about 3 to 6 months of savings that I can tap into, because I feel like for me and my job, I work in tech, I think I could relatively find a job within 3 to 6 months. So that's how much savings I feel comfortable having in my emergency fund. So if you're going off of that, obviously your emergency fund will look different. It just depends on what your living expenses are. But if you're following step 1 of my 6-step plan, then you will already be tracking all of your monthly living expenses and you'll know how much you need to survive from month to month. So just take that, times it by 3 or 6, and that is what your emergency fund should be. So what are the best strategies for saving up for an emergency fund? So personally, I think an emergency fund is like a very big priority. It's probably one of the first things you should tackle when you're trying to get your finances in order. So I really think a lot of frivolous spending, if you have like discretionary spending in your budget, a beauty budget, things like that, like extra stuff, I think it would be beneficial for you to try to lower all the extra spending as much as possible to make room for extra money going into your emergency fund. In all honesty, if you do have an emergency, but you don't have an emergency fund, that has the potential to really put you back financially. Like any sort of emergency can put you into debt immediately if you don't have an emergency fund. So that's why I just think that that needs to take precedent over, you know, discretionary spending and like all the extra stuff in your budget. So I would go through your budget and look through your monthly spending and try to take out as much stuff as possible so that you can put that extra money into an emergency fund. And then once you build your emergency fund up, you can start prioritizing other things. The 2 things that I would very much highly suggest you still prioritize while you're trying to build up an emergency fund is obviously paying off any minimums that you have on any of your debt, and also trying to get a 401k match if your employer offers one of those, because that's just like free money. So those 2 things, prioritize. All the other things, I feel like that can be prioritized after you build up your emergency fund. When it comes to the best accounts to hold your emergency fund in, I have tried a bunch of different accounts, and what works best for me is just a high yields savings account. So I use Ally. I think there are other accounts out there that might have a higher interest rate. I think my Ally account right now is 4.75 interest. There might be other banks out there. So just do like a quick Google search on like what bank accounts are offering the highest interest for like savings accounts, and then just go with that. Personally, I like to make sure that it's a savings account because the interest is going to be higher. Also, I believe that emergency fund isn't something that you're going to be dipping in all the time. So that's why I also don't think it should be a checking account. I feel like a checking account is for money that is constantly being added to and taken out a lot. A savings account is just for money that needs to sit there. And hopefully in the best case scenario, you don't have to pull from that account very often. One last tip when it comes to emergency funds, when you're trying to calculate how much money you want to save for your emergency fund, I said go through and look at what your monthly expenses are and then times that by 3 or 6 so that you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up. I would do a modified version of this. This is what I do, which is I look at my monthly expenses because I track my expenses every single month. But the thing about my expenses are, if you look through my expenses, I have things up there like entertainment and like beauty and stuff like that. I take those amounts out of the equation when I am figuring out how much to save for my emergency fund, because for me, I'm like, this emergency fund, I'm gonna tap into this if I like lose my job or something like that. And if I lose my job, baby, I'm not getting my nails done, okay? Like, I'm not going out to eat. I'm gonna take all of those extra things out of the equation. So I'm only gonna like account for things like my rent, groceries, any type of like minimums on any debts that I need to, I have an obligation to pay each month, things like that. But when it comes to stuff like alcohol or going out and entertainment and all that kind of stuff, that's going to be put on the back burner. I hope these tips and tricks help you to build up a nice emergency fund and help you to get your finances in a sound position.
If I was a woman who wanted to stop living paycheck to paycheck and I wanted to get my finances in order to get ahead at the bare minimum, I would have a savings of $1,000 in my emergency fund. And before you start like, oh, you need to have 3 times, you need to have 6 times, sometimes 1,000 is a lot. If you would ask me last year, I did not have it, okay? Take it from me. And this is how we're going to do it. We are going to, 1, make some sacrifices. I don't want to hear it. And 2, we are going to diversify our income. 1, we are going to make some sacrifices. I know you're probably going to get your hair, your nails, your pedicures, your coffees, and that's all important. Live your life, but we need to have some money in the bank as well. What does that look like? Instead of going to get your toes and nails done every 2 weeks, maybe get a nude color, a little Frenchie on your toes that can last you up to a month with gel. Instead of every 2 weeks, maybe getting gel X or structured manicures that's going to be a little bit sturdier. Maybe you can stretch it 3 weeks to 4 weeks instead of getting acrylics that's going to break. You don't always have to get a new design every 2 weeks just because you get paid. Think about the money that can add up. Maybe that looks like cooking at home instead of going to DoorDash. Whenever I looked at my DoorDash when I was getting my finances in order, it was abysmal. Why was I eating out so much? I started cooking at home, saved me so much money. You can even go through your closet and look at clothes that you've never worn, look at furniture that you're not using, things like that, and sell it on Facebook Marketplace for a profit that you could put in your savings. The little things add up. Maybe you can leverage a skill. Do you know how to do hair? Do you know how to do nails? Do you know how to do lashes? Do you know how to do brows? Do you know how to do some type of service? Can you be a dog walker on the weekends? Can you do DoorDash? Can you do Uber? Can you do Lyft? Any little thing to bring in more money is going to help. I got into finances, I made a budgeting template, and that has been a passive income for me. You get to starting like, oh my God, I don't have the time for all of that. You make time for the things that are important, and your personal finances should be important because life is always going to be lifing. And in this day and age, people don't have it to help you. You have to help yourself. You would have been telling me that I would be breaking up with my boyfriend who I thought I was going to be engaged, to be moving out of his apartment, and I would be moving in across country, and how was I going to be paying for it last year? I would have looked at you crazy. I would have been crying, screaming, throwing up, but I got my shit together. So whenever I made the decision that this relationship was not working out for me, I did not have to stress. I had it in the bank. Get it together.
Baby step 1, save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. $1,000. When I first started doing this, I did not have that as baby step 1. I had shut up and get out of debt. But then people would have an alternator blow on their car that was $350, and they didn't have any money because I told them to put everything on their debt, and they would sit there going, I'm broke and I got to get to work. Screw you, Dave, this doesn't work. And they would quit. And so I went, okay, we got to have a little bit of pad, but we can't build up a big pile of money while we got this huge pile of debt over here. That doesn't make sense either. So we're going to get just a little starter emergency fund. The humorous thing is that 30 years later, now people are saying, Dave, you need to adjust this because of inflation. It was never intended to be enough. $1,000 is not enough, and by the way, $2,000 is not enough. So it doesn't matter, because you're not going to live here for very long. This is $1,000 just to catch the little stuff so you don't lose your emotional momentum, because we're running a behavior modification program here, so emotional momentum matters.
Every personal finance expert on this app, including yours truly, will tell you that your first financial goal is to save for a 3-month emergency fund, but very rarely does someone tell you exactly how to save for that emergency fund and exactly how long it'll take you using realistic numbers. I'm about to do this in this video. I'll show you how to realistically save for your first 3-month emergency fund at a salary of $60,000. So a $60,000 salary monthly is about $3,904 counting for taxes. Then we add in expenses, subtracting things like rent, utilities, cell phone, car insurance, subscriptions that you may have. Obviously, this will vary, and these numbers are for example purposes only, but make sure that you write out what those expenses are for you month over month. You then want to take an average of things like gas and groceries and subtract that as expenses as well for the month. Now your total 1-month emergency fund amount is $2,890. That's all your bare necessity expenses for the month added up. Then we subtract that from your monthly take-home income. We have $1,014 remaining. So out of that $1,014 that we have left over, we're going to put $350 a month into your emergency fund. Now your total 3-month fund is about $8,670. So time to get that completed will be 24 months.
So how much money should you have set aside in an emergency fund? For those that don't know, an emergency fund is just planning for if the plan don't go according to plan, right? When life decides to life, you are financially prepared. You always hear people say 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, and yes, that's cool, but that's long term. Unfortunately, not everybody can do that. And it's so important to mention that 76% of this country cannot afford an unexpected $1,000 expense, which is why $1,000 should be your first goal. Why $1,000? I mean, that can cover a broad range of emergencies, from tire going flat, car getting towed, screen cracked, deductibles, whatever. So what now? Well, if you have high interest debt, I'm talking about credit cards, personal loans, etc., it is important for you to now direct your energy to paying everything off. Having that debt will bury you way faster than anything else will. From there, I recommend you build your emergency fund up to 1 month's worth of expenses. After you have hit that target, you can now take all the money that you save per paycheck and split it between saving and investing. Why investing? Well, investing is not something you want to forget about, and the earlier the better. Now, once that emergency fund has hit 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, you can now stop putting money into that account and put everything towards investing. Last thing, I recommend that you keep your emergency fund in a high yield savings account. This will ensure that when you're saving money, your money is also making money.
We have a 1-year emergency fund because I have an irrational fear of losing everything. I wish I was kidding, but I am not. Now, how did I come up with this random number? Well, let's add up how much my husband and I need to make every single month just to pay our bills in the city. Rent, $1,990, parking, $290, car insurance, $168, car payment, $740, health insurance, $210, electricity, $40, internet, $53, phone, $60, food and essentials, about $1,000. In total, that's $4,551. If we multiply that by 12, it's $54,612. Now this money sits in a high yield savings account and makes us about $200 a month. Is this a lot? Yeah. Is it excessive? Probably. But knowing that I have access to this money makes me feel a lot better. We're also a young couple and we do plan on buying property in the next couple of years, so this money will come in handy either way. And please remember that this is for 2 people and one of them has a lot of money anxiety. So your emergency fund probably doesn't need to be this much, but please don't kid yourself thinking that you don't need one. Start with 1 month and build from there.
Getting to a $50K emergency fund was a level of security that I had never felt before, so here are a few things that you can do to build up your emergency fund and to feel that security in navigating life. The path to least resistance when it comes to saving for your emergency fund ultimately comes down to moving back if you have the privilege or access to do so. For the first 2 years post-grad, I lived with my grandfather and I saved a ton on rent. I only really had to worry about groceries, my student loans, and my car payment. As you're starting to save and build that muscle of saving, you can start to reinvest that delta into yourself. So the skills, the courses, the certifications that you need in order to make yourself more attractive in the job market, to get into roles that are higher paying and ultimately give you better benefits along the journey. Before I graduated graduated college, I made a very conscious decision to go into tech sales because I knew it was the path to least resistance in terms of the skills that I was ultimately going to learn and the path and trajectory to earning a lot of money in a short amount of time. 3, and probably the most difficult, you're going to have to learn to say no to things that don't contribute towards your bigger vision and goal for yourself financially and personally. During your 20s, there are going to be people that choose a path of discipline and there are going to be people that choose a path of misery. You have to be able to distinguish who is choosing a path of misery, and typically those are the people that are going out every weekend blowing all of their money on alcohol and not really planning for their future. I'm not saying you can't have fun with your money, but be very selective with where you say yes and where you say no, and always view yourself as an investment and how your money is going to go further for you in pouring it back into you and the things that truly matter and are fulfilling for you in life. An emergency fund is ultimately a privilege to have, but these small habits create a path of least resistance for you to be able to experience that privilege, and I hope they help for you.
And that's how you start building your emergency fund, one smart step at a time. Remember, it's not about how much you start with, it's about starting it all. If this video helped you get clear on your savings goals, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little money motivation. Subscribe to Profit Pulse for more simple strategies to build financial confidence and freedom. This is Profit Pulse. Stay smart, stay steady, stay profitable.